Respected Shri Ashok Pradhan ji, Director Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Delhi Kendra, Professor Durga Basu, the speaker today, all the eminent scholars who have joined us, friends. This year is being celebrated as 75th year of our independence. Bhavan's Munshi Center for Indology, Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Delhi Kendra, and Destination Heritage, Bangalore, Founder Trustee, Dr. Geeta Badikalaya. Both of us have joined together to be a part of these celebrations. Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, with its 367 constituent institutions, 119 branches in India, and 7 centers abroad, has been assiduously promoting India's cultural heritage. And Destination Heritage provides a forum and creating informed awareness to discover and understand our heritage, and especially inspiring the youth. Today is the third lecture of the series on temple architecture. Temples are not just mere architecture structures or monuments. They are reservoirs of our rich heritage, connecting the past with the present and the future. Today's lecture is on the temples of Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh in the Himalayas, a small state, was not a state until 1971. The rulers of various parts of today's state, Himachal Pradesh, how they were devoted to Shiva, to Buddhism, and to Jainism is reflected by the temples they built and the coins that are discovered, inscriptions that are found, and sculptures, etc. There are a few places, a few cities, few regions in Himachal Pradesh that are famous for these temples, like Kangra and Chamba and Palampur, Sirmaur, Barmaur, going up to Rampur Bushehr, up the hills. And there are so many kinds of discoveries of coins there. They reflect how early we can trace the devotion to Shiva and other deities. It's amazing to see how they have taken even the Mathura style, and most important, very fascinating, is the discovery of Kharoshti and Brahmi coins from this. So there are many, many important elements in Himachal Pradesh, and there are some elements which I have seen, being Himachali myself, that the scientific aspect of the temples in Himachal has not been studied. For example, the Bajnath temple, actually the word is Vaidyanath, and during my last visit to Bajnath temple, I found that people were donating huge amounts of desi ghee, washing it 100 times. And I knew that washing desi ghee 100 times with water makes it an amazing medicine for curing skin diseases. So there are many, many different types of temples, very interesting, like Jwalamukhi, and you can have rock cut temples, you can see wooden temples, and so on. So today, we are thankful to Professor Durga Basu to accept our invitation. She is former professor and head of the Department of Archaeology, Calcutta University. Presently, she is Senior Fellow of Indian Council for Social Science Research, Director, Institute of Business Management and Research, Kolkata, President, Society of Heritage, Archaeology and Management, Vice President of Kolkata Society of Asian Studies, Visiting Professor of Ramakrishna Mission, Institute of Culture, Indology Department. She specializes in Buddhist studies, historical archaeology, Indian art and architecture. She has published several articles in national and international journals. She has visited a number of countries for research and presentation of papers. She has published monographs like the NBP Culture of Eastern India. She has edited books like Folk Architecture of Asian Countries, a Comparative Study, Bharat Tattva Volume 3, Sister Nivedita's Interpretation of Swami Vivekananda, and Cross-Cultural Multidisciplinary Philosophy, Research Methodology, Tools and Techniques in Social Science. And there are many other things that she has been doing passionately, professionally, and we invite her with great respect to deliver today's talk number 3 in our temple cities. Please, Professor Durga Basu.
Thank you, Dr. Shoshibalaji, for your introduction. And good evening, everybody. Respected Director of Bharatiya Vidya Bhawan, Shoshibalaji, and other dignitaries present here, and the friends. I also thank to Ritaji for inviting me here to present my paper or my I would like to say a few words about the temples of Himachal Pradesh. But it is absolutely, my study is based on the vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh. Now, when we talk about the temples of India, then we can say that there are the several architectural patterns, and our Shilpo text refer 3 different types of temple structure in India, and these are the major architectural patterns of India. That is Nagara temple style, the Vaishya and Dravida temple style. But in spite of this temple architecture, India had produced a large number of temples characterizing some local and regional features. And these temples have revealed some magnificent architectural features, which are not much known to the people. So today I will just focus on the vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh. And as you know, that in India, some of the states like Kerala, West Bengal, Assam, Tripura, and Himachal Pradesh had produced such a beautiful temple architecture, temples with some distinct architectural features. But these temples are quite different from each other, and these temple styles differ from region to region, state to state. But there is no such characterization that we can get an homogeneous character of this particular temple style. But we want to study this because it is the time to look back our region or the local temple architectural style. Now here what we find that the vernacular temples are also very significant in these states, and especially in Indian, when we are talking about the Indian temple architecture. Now, what is vernacular architecture? Now, in most cases, what we have seen that the vernacular temple architecture, temples are constructed in form of the local or the regional domestic house pattern. So the folk house or the domestic or the village huts or village houses played a dominant role for coming up these type of temples. So that is why we call these temples the vernacular temples. So here today, I would like to focus on the vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh because Himachal Pradesh is such a region where we find the different types of temple architecture in form of the classical temple architecture, in form of the village rural or the vernacular temple architecture. So it is very interesting to find out that this hilly state is characterized by such a structure, the temple structure, which are not known to many of us, and that is we should know why this type of temple architecture came up and the significance of this temple architecture. Now, the temple architecture, the vernacular temple architecture of Himachal Pradesh, that or in any region, because we have this temple architecture in Kerala, in West Bengal, Assam, Tripura, in so many states, we find that the growth of these vernacular temples. So why these temples came up? Now, first of all, there are certain causes for the coming up this type of temples in that states. And now the first cause is the requirements of the religious structure, and this is needed by the local or the village people for worshipping their local deities and to perform the certain rituals, the certain local rituals. For these, they created or they constructed this type of temples in form of their homestead pattern, in form of their domestic houses. Sometimes we find it in absolutely, it is similar to that of the homes, that were their house, which is built either in wood or in stone. So it happens in most cases, in most of the states. If we compare with the Kerala, then we find that these temples are built with wood and bamboo, and absolutely it is similar to their homestead plan of homestead, or similar to their own village house. So this is also found even in the West Bengal. Here we find that the hut style of temples. And this West Bengal is famous for this terracotta hut temples, hut style temples. So it is absolutely similar to the hut style hut or the similar to the village house. So this is important, that the domestic house played a vital role for coming up this particular type of temples in that particular region. Now, as you know, that India has characterized by several or different varied physiographical units with features, having different types of climates, having different types of ecological aspects. So when we study the particular, when we speak of the vernacular temples, that the vernacular temples actually differ from one region to another, one state to another state, because in geography, if we see the geography, if you see the environment and the physiographical features, that we find the differences between in between the states. So this is very important for us, that ecology, the climatic condition, and even the geographical features played a vital role for coming up this particular type of temples. So here today, we want to highlight the Himachal Pradesh, the state of Himachal Pradesh, where the state has a unique physiographical features, and having unique because it belongs to the northwestern part of Indian subcontinent, India. And then we find that it's absolutely in the midst of the hill that state belongs. So first of all, if we want to understand the physiographical features, if we want to understand the architectural features, then definitely we should know the physiographical features of that particular region, because that particular climate or the environmental features have regulated that particular temple structure and even the technique of construction. Now, another thing is that why the significance of that particular temple architecture, the vernacular temple architecture, that is, in most cases, in these temples, in most states, we find that the local constructional technique was applied for the construction of this type of temple. So the local skill and the technique have been introduced or have been utilized for the construction of this particular style or for the construction of this type of temple. And for this, what we have seen, that the knowledge, the skill, the constructional skill or the knowledge that travel from one generation to another generation. So it is a age-old traditional skill, the traditional technique they applied for construction of their own village temples or the vernacular temples, because it is absolutely very close to their heart, and it reflects that the temples reflect their rituals, their customs, their beliefs, their technical aspects, and even the traditional knowledge they have. So it is also very important to know that if we know the architecture of this particular any region, then definitely we can know their beliefs, their customs, their traditional the life, their traditional technique, construction, because each and everywhere we have seen that they applied whatever the vernacular temples we have seen, that in vernacular temples that they applied the constructional technique which is very indigenous. The indigenous form of structure they created for their religious purpose, for constructing the shrines of the gods and goddesses. Now, another thing is that in these states, mainly in the states of West Bengal, Assam, then the Himachal Pradesh, we find that for the worship of their own deities, for the worship of the local deities, because some local deities, in spite of that, the people believed in the Brahmanical pantheon, believe in the higher Brahmanical religion, but in spite of that, they believed some local deities, and these local deities are different from each other's region. It is quite different, because now if we compare with the West Bengal but other states, then especially in Himachal Pradesh, what we have seen, that they believed in definitely the Trinity, they believe in the Brahmanical deities, but in spite of this, they believe in some local deities. They worship the local deities like Shanta Gayatri, like the Tripura Sundari, then like the Hirimba Devi. So these are not very common in other parts of India. So some deities like Tripura Sundari, definitely Tripura Sundari is being worshipped in the other parts, in the eastern part and in the southern part of India. But now when we speak of that particular shrine of Hirimba Devi, then it is quite unnatural, it is quite uncommon to the other region. So for the worship of the local deities, they created that particular shrine. So this is also important, because it gives us the concept, the idea of the people of the Himachal Pradesh, or the people of the particular region. Now, another thing is that the local materials were used for construction of this type of temples. So wherever you go, wherever you see the vernacular temples in any state of India, then you will find that the local materials are used for construction of this. So it is easily available materials. But in spite of this, they have created such magnificent temple architecture in that particular region. So today we are concerned about the Himachal Pradesh, and definitely we will see that how they created, with the help of the local skill, with the help of that traditional technique and the local materials, they have constructed some beautiful temple architecture of India. Because it is absolutely, this is the right time to look back our region state-wise. So we have to look back our own region to study, to know the basic character of the temples, not only the temple architecture, but the ethos of that particular region, the concept of the religious concept, beliefs and customs. So through this particular construction, through these temples, we can feel actually that the life of that, or the social and the religious life of that particular region. So with this a little introduction, now I would like to go to the slides so that you can have an idea of that Himachal, the temples, vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh. 1 minute, please. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes.
Is it visible? Okay.
Yeah, it is visible. Yeah, please.
Next slide, first slide, please. Okay. Now the Himachal Pradesh. As you know, the Himachal Pradesh is located in the northwestern part of India, and it is bounded by other states of India. And the northern side, it is bounded by Ladakh, northern west is Jammu and Kashmir, and the western side is bounded. Yes, please. And northern and the western side is like Punjab, state of Punjab, and the southern part you will have you can see that is bounded by Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, and now the eastern part is bounded by the neighboring country. Now the Himachal Pradesh have 12 districts. That particular state have 12 districts, and some of the districts like Chamba, Kinnaur, then Manali, Kulu Manali districts, and have produced a number of particular the vernacular temples of India, vernacular temples. Now here what we find that actually some of the Lahul Spiti, some of the states or the districts are studied with the tribal population. And here what we find that the particular glory of the Himachal Pradesh, the state of Himachal Pradesh, has been referred to the Skanda Purana. And now, since the Himachal Pradesh falls within the Himalayan physiographic zone, then we have to understand that particular physiography of this. In a very few words, I would like to highlight this physiographic aspects so that we can understand the regional geographical and that the particular geography and the climatic condition of that particular region. Now the Himachal Pradesh, the Himalaya physiographic unit, definitely the physiographic system especially, has 3 different physiographic units, that is Shivalik, and the first is Shivalik, and then the inner or the lesser Himalayan unit or the mountainous region, and the alpine zone or the higher or the greater Himalayan region. So the Himachal Pradesh falls or belongs to the lesser Himalayan region, and this region is characterized by the deep gorges formed by the hasty river flows, and the entire state is endowed with 5 great rivers. As you know, that these rivers are Sutlej, Beas, Ravi, Chenab, and Jamuna. And the climate of this particular region, particular state, differs from one part to the another, because it is it shows the high altitude, the middle Himalayan region, the altitude of the lower altitude region, and even the river valleys. So the Himachal Pradesh, with its complex geomorphological aspect, present a unique feature with intricate mosaic of the mountain ranges and lofty hills and river valleys. So now we can see that there are several characteristics or the several units of the physiographic of systems of that particular region. And the geomorphological characterization, we can explain in that way. That is, the state is composed of recent alluvium. Shivalik hills are made of with sandstone, shale, and clay, which came into the existence during Eocene, Miocene, and Pliocene period. Now, the another characteristic is the middle section of the state, which extends from Chamba district in the north to the Shimla in the south, shows the Jatok group of rocks, which has originated in the middle, which had originated in the middle Petrozoic period. Now, in the northeastern part, unclassified granites merge in the central part in between Kulu, Eastern Shimla, Lahul Spiti, and the new areas of Kinnaur district. Now, another physiographic character is the Eastern Greater Himalaya. It presents the Triassic formation, which is found in the Kaza Tehsil of the Lahul Spiti district. And as you know, that old rocks are granites seen at Jeori, Wangtu, and Pandal near the Largi in Kulu district. So these are the physiographical characteristics of that particular region or the state. Now, as you have seen that it belongs to the mountainous region, so it is also in the snow-capped mountains that the particular state, some of the particular regions have developed the vernacular temples, and we definitely should know the religious aspect of this. So now the religious aspect, if we consider that religious aspect of this, the people believed in different gods and goddesses. They worship in such a way. They worship the gods and goddesses, and especially the Brahmanical trinity, Brahmanical trinity, and at the same time they worship certain local deities, and some Vedic seers they worship. So here we find that some unique features of that particular religious life of this particular region. And among these Vedic seers that they worship, we have the temples of the Vashishta Muni, then Vashishta sage, and then the Parashar sage, and other deities like Hirimba Devi and the Dochamocha Devi. So these are absolutely the local deities. They prefer to worship this particular region, the worship by the people. Now, another thing is that the temple architecture. Now this is the physiographical features of this, and now we should know that the temples, because in most cases, the temples, we find that definitely on the river valleys also, but most of the temples, especially the Vernacular and even the Nagara temple style, developed in the midst of the forest region, in the midst of the high hills, and even in the lower altitude areas. So now we can see here the geophysical aspect of the particular region, Manali, because the Vyas Valley, this particular valley is endowed with a number of vernacular temples. And especially, I have already told you that the Chamba, Kinnor, then Manali, Kulu region are studded with the number of temples, especially the vernacular temples. That means the village or the village folk type of temples. But in spite of that, we have that Nagara temple style. And so if we consider entire temple's construction here, then we find the three different characteristics of the temple styles. So here you can see that is a Nagara temple style. As you know that the Nagara temples spread over a vast region of India. So here in the northern side, northern area, then central, then eastern and western part, we have this particular, the diffusion of that particular style, but with regional characteristics. Some of the temples are very important, and even that the Shashi Balaji has mentioned that a particular temple, the Baidyanath, they say. So it is very important temple, and it is absolutely built in form of the Nagara style. Then another two style which we find in the vernacular temples, that is the painter roof or gable roofed temples, and the multi-tower or the pyramidal type of temples in that particular region. So when we speak of the vernacular temples, then definitely these vernacular temples have reflected these two architectural patterns, that is painter roof or gable roof, or that is absolutely the particular multi-tower temple, which is commonly known as pyramidal roof. So here what we have seen, that the village temples are mostly in a very simple way. They build their village temples. And sometimes what we have seen, that is the wood and the stones are used for constructing this village, these temples. It is a very simple temples on the way the village Vyas Valley, where that is the particular, the temples came up in the midst of the dense forest. But this is absolutely the village temple, and they constructed these temples with the help of the wood and sometimes the stones. But here we find that absolute the wooden structure. So you can see the multi-tower temple is here. It is very small temple in this particular region. Now the materials like stone and wood are very common, but at the same time that in the other temples, we only find the wooden temples. Sometimes we find the use of both the wood and stones, and a special technique was used for construction of that particular temple style of Himachal Pradesh. And now what we see, that there are different types of constructional techniques. So here you can see the three different types of technique, that is mud construction, dry stone construction, and the Katkuni construction. So when we speak of that particular vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh, then we find that the Katkuni construction was very commonly used, and these particular techniques are very popular in that particular region, because people applied this particular technique because it is suitable for that, for their temple structure. Because whenever, whatever we go, wherever we go, we find that the people use the technique which is suitable for their own region. Now, as you know, that Himachal Pradesh, it is in winter, it's a snow-capped mountains. We find the snow-capped mountains, and then it is absolutely in winter. It is very difficult. The harsh climate the people face the harsh climate. So they applied such a technique that could protect their structure, and even, as you know, that the Himachal Pradesh and belongs to such a region that it falls within the seismic zone. So these, from the tectonic tremor, they often fell the tectonic tremor. So from that particular point of that particular aspect, from this aspect, actually at least they could protect their structure, that is domestic house, and even at this their religious structure. So here what we find that the Katkuni is very popular in that particular region, and we should know what is Katkuni technique, and that is applied for this particular structure, temple structure. Now, first of all, if we want to understand, if we want to know the characteristics of the temples or vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh, then we should know that particular house pattern of that region, because it is important to know that whatever they created, whatever they constructed there, in which style they constructed, in the same manner they constructed the particular their temple structure also. Now you can see here that both the stone and the wood were applied for this construction. Now, how they complement? In most cases, what we find that due to snow, heavy snowfall, and they mostly on lower plane, a low plinth or a high plinth, they created the stone plinth. First of all, they built the stone plinth, and then they created the structure. This is their house pattern, and they absolutely, if you see, that it is the combination of the wooden logs and the stones. They created it such a way, and this portion is kept for the livestock. They keep the livestock here, and the common people, the village people, they live on the upper part of the structure of their houses. Now you can see the wooden post, how this wooden post are placed horizontally and vertically, and the vertical logs are kept here so that they can carry the load of the upper part. Now here you can see that the cantilevered beams are used for extending, for giving the space of the upper part of this, because this portion is used by the people or the village people. They live here. So here we can see it is a very common in that particular region, in the home plan, that in the construction they used in that particular cantilevered beams. And then it is absolutely the wooden construction, but with the help of stone and wood. Now, what is the purpose of using these two things? Because in the same manner, they created their vernacular temple architecture, temples, because they knew the condition of their climatic condition, the village people or the local people. They knew the condition, the climatic condition. They knew the physiographic features of physiographic condition of that particular region. They knew the harsh climate of that particular region. So they created such a structure so that they can protect their structure from this harsh climatic condition. So here we can see that how they built that particular structure. Now, first of all, this particular structure. Now, so some of the characteristics of this structure. First of all, the people can easily construct their house pattern or the houses, and they can construct the temple structure of that particular style. So they do not require any specialized craftsmanship. They do not require any specialized group of masons for construction of their houses and for construction of the temples. So the local people, since they have their indigenous knowledge, since they have that skill, that or the traditional knowledge which they carry forward generations after generations, and they apply to their construction. Now you can see here that simple village people, they are creating or they're constructing their house pattern. Now the first of all, you can see here that it is absolutely that they can use the material. So reuse of this material. There is no, actually the materials, the wood and especially the stones they use, this is not deteriorable. So here you can see that both these things are applied for the construction of their house, the local village house. Now first of all, they placed the two beams horizontally, and it is filled by the stones or the fragments of the stones. And in most cases, because it is this stone, particular this slate, is easily available in that particular region. And now they set that particular, they put all the stones in between the gap of these two wooden logs, and these wooden logs is now joined by dovetail. That means a wooden bridge here, and to join these two rails. And now here you can see that it is absolutely, it is a low maintenance. There is no cost for maintaining this particular, because you can use it again, that if you construct the new one, then you can reuse these materials. So it is a less maintenance cost it has. And then there we find that the structural resilience. Now another thing is that they do not use any mortar in that particular thing. No synthetic material has been done. And another is a very important thing is that infill traps the air within this, so that for the insulation, as you know that the heat is required in the winter time or in a very harsh climate, winter climate. So heat is required. So here what we find, that insulation, that means even it gives the warmth in that particular wall of this. So they built in that way, they built that particular wall. Now, sometimes when I visited that region, that I have seen that some of the village houses, the outer wall is not plastered or painted. So I asked the village people, then why this most of your village houses are not plastered from outer side. They replied me that actually for entering the heat, the sun heat, they actually it can penetrate through this wall to keep the room warm. So it is also very significant that they knew how to keep the heat in that particular room, in the room, and even in the when they constructed that particular temple structure. It is also very important to know that how they keep this structure warm. So this is the indigenous technique they applied, and they knew that is their harsh climate. They knew that it is necessary for keeping all this thing that they could protect their structure. Another thing is that which is very significant, that when they use this thing, that is the wooden logs and then wood and that's in between the stones, and even you can see that in the stone are placed in between the wooden logs. So even it can withstand the tectonic tremor. So this is also very important for this structure. Now you can see that how they created that the balcony, that is absolutely cantilevered with the wooden, and it is a cut kuni. Why we say the cut kuni? That means the wood and the corner. Here you can see that how the horizontal, the vertical beams are placed inside the horizontal bar or horizontal wooden logs. So it is absolutely that in that way they everywhere they applied the wood and stones. So it is absolutely a cut kuni method, and everywhere in the village house, whether it is in village house or other it is in structure, they use this particular type of structure, particular technique, and which is very significant for that particular region. Now another structure, you can see how they place the wooden logs one after another, and then that is covered by that particular slate or the stones, and then you can see the roof of this. Now, the most cases, we find that the roof is built with the sloping roofs, because it is a painted roof, and the multi-tower, even in the structure, even in the temple structure, we find the multi-tiered structure, multi-tiered tower. And the slope is also necessary for the construction of this type of houses or this type of temple structure, because it is built with just wooden frame was first made, and then it is covered with the slate stones, so that it can protect from the snowfall. So it is also a very significant house pattern or the structure we find in this particular region. Now we start our journey to see how the temples are built with the help of wood and stone. Now, it is a wooden temple. As you know, it is one of the most significant and most popular temple in Manali region, that is Hirimba Devi temple. Now, as you know, that Hirimba Devi, it's on the in the midst of the dense forest, and on the hill that particular temple stands. And as you know, that Hirimba Devi, the wife of, it is an epical figure, and the wife of Bhima Devi. But here, the deity, then actually Hirimba Devi has been personified as goddess, and she became very popular in that particular state, especially in this region, hilly region. And she is, and the people know that she can destroy. She has a destructive power, and at the same time, they know that her beneficial activities. So they worship regularly, they worship Hirimba Devi. And you can see here the multi-tower. I have already shown you that is the two categories are very important. That is, one is multi-tower pyramidal roof, and another is that painted roof temple. So here you can see that is a multi-tower temples. And here you can see that metal conical, in a conical shape. It is a metal finial over this particular tower. So here
I'm sorry, Professor Durga Basu. We can't see your presentation. Something has gone wrong with the presentation.
Okay, now I just want to tell you that it is absolutely that whatever the vernacular temples found here, it is in form of the village houses. So we try to understand what type of village houses is there. Now you can see that is first of all, the most of the houses stand over a low or the high plinth, and then it is absolutely the construction technique applied, that is a Katkonic construction technique applied here. So both the stones and the wood have been applied here, and you can see that is the wooden post, how they place the wooden post, and the cantilevered beams are there, so that they can get more space here, because for the lower part it is kept for their livestock, and the upper part, actually the village people live in this particular region. So here again, then the next part, now you can see that is the construction technique of this. It is very indigenous, very unique technique they applied for the construction of their houses and for the temple structure. So no external or no specialized craftsmanship is required. No special group of mason is required for the construction of this. So the simple village people, the villagers, they could construct that particular temples. Now you can see that is the facility of this type of construction. You can see the two horizontal beams or the wooden logs have been kept, and it is joined by the dovetail. So it is just like a wooden bridge like, so that they can join this without any mortar. Sometimes we find a few iron nails were used, but in most cases the wooden logs are used, wooden beam or the bridge is used. Now here you can see that the infill traps the air for insulation, because it, as you know, it is a very cold region, and so that is why they keep their house warm. So they created this type of construction here, and now with the help of this wood and the stone, and as you know, that is that they use the wooden logs and very strong timber. they have used for the construction of both the temples and the house pattern, household structure. Now here the wood has, especially the deodar wood, has its own thermal property. So by using that particular wooden beams, they try to keep their house warm, and even I have just told you that even the outer wall they do not want to paint in most household houses, because they told me that it is that the heat or the sun heat or they could penetrate through the wall, so that they can keep their house or the room warm. So this is also very important for their structure for this. Now I wanted another. It's not coming up. Oof, what happened? 1 minute, it's not going. Okay, now we can see that katkuni method is very important, because kat, that means wood, and the corner. So they place the woods at the corner, but here you can see that how they place this, because the vertical beams are placed, and it is inserted in the horizontal beams, and in such a way that that particular beams can carry the load of the upper load of this structure. So this is also very projecting wood balcony, because here also you can see that the cantilevered beams are used for extending the space of the veranda or the space of the upper part. Now the next one is a roof. It's absolutely that the wooden structure was first created, and then it is covered by the slate. Slate is also very easily available material of the stone in this particular region, and it is very common. The slate stones are used even in the house, or the domestic house and houses, and even in the temple structures. Now I want to show you that is there are two major categories are the architectural characteristics of that particular for their elevation. They use two techniques. Therefore, one is the penter roof, the gable roofed structure. Another is a multi-tiered structure. So over the temple, the square or the rectangular temples that they created the structure, and they multi-storied in a sloping, just like a common pyramid. It is also commonly known as pyramidal structure. Now we can see that they worship. It is a very important, a very popular temple in the Manali district, in the Manali region. And here the Hirimba Devi temple, the same category, the same style applied even the temple structure, wooden temples. And you can see how that structure, the entire structure, the outer wall is embellished with the wooden carvings. This is also another important aspects of the vernacular temples of that particular region, because it is absolutely that the frontal part and even the side wall is embellished or ornamented with the structure, with the divinities, with floral motifs, with designs and the geometrical designs, and so and so. So this is also where the Hirimba Devi is also very popular deity here. The next is another is a Vashishta temple. Now you can see it is a penter roof, gable roof structure. Sometimes we find the single story structure, and sometimes we find the double storied. Here you can see it is also the double storied, and in fact that is the triple story structure, and with the gable or with the penter roof structure, but in the same category, that is the wood and stone. Both these materials were used for constructing this, and the slope is covered with the help of the slates. This is integrated designs of the temple, and you can see that Vashishta temple. Sometimes we find the Parashar temple, Gautam Rishi temple. So Vedic seers are also being worshipped by the people, the village people. Now the temples again here, the wooden stone and how they created this type of temples, and you see the local temples, local house that absolutely with the help of the wood and stone, and even the upper part, the roof has been covered with the slates. Now it is another, it's a beautiful Sunda Gayatri temple at Jagatshuk, and you can see that the beautiful penter roof temple, and it's having a garbhagriha, and it is surrounded by the production path, and how beautifully they created particular the roof structure of that particular region. Both the stones and wooden carving is also very beautiful here. And Shunda Gayatri is another very important temple structure here. The frontal part, you can see that it is absolutely over a lofty plinth. The temple stands, and that how the Katkuni technique has been used here. And you can see here the common local house. And here also you can find that in between the stone walls, you find the wooden logs and it is covered with the stones. Now another is a Tripura Sundari temple. This is also very important or very significant temples, and it's a beautiful example of that pyramidal roof. The elevation is in form of a pyramidal, but it is again the wooden temple, and the stone has been used for the roof. And you can see that the multi-tower temple here, and how they built that particular temple. It's a beautiful temple with the intricate carvings, beautiful wooden embellishments, or the carvings are there. So here you can see the interplan of this. Now I have tried to draw this plan there. It's some of the gateway. It's a small gateway, and this is the plan. And it's having the Garbhagriha, and in front we find that the assembly hall. Now you can see this. That is it is open from the three sides of almost. It is an open veranda or open mandapa, and this mandapa has a unique roof style. You can see this. Now you can see how they built the upper roof, because first they formed the structure of this with the help of very intricate carving, very intricate designs they created even on the roof, and then it is covered with the slate. So this is a unique creation of the village people. So they have their knowledge, and definitely we should appreciate their indigenous form of knowledge, indigenous skill for creating such a village temple. And so it is so unique, the vernacular temples of one of the unique examples of vernacular temples of India. Now another is a Docha-Mocha temple. I have already told you that some of the local deities they believed and they worship, and it is again the painted roof, having a beautiful sloping roof, and with the three finials over there, and some designs are here, and over a plinth, stone plinths, that particular temples is built, because this stone is used, or the plinth is used for because it is absolutely, the region is in winter it is full of snow, so for protecting that particular snow. So the Katkuni technique is unique, because I'm emphasizing on that particular technique, because definitely the dry stone construction is there, mud construction is there, but it is unique for the region, because they applied that particular thing is to protect their structure, which is itself very unique, for protecting from the hard climate, protecting from the snow, protecting. One of the most important thing is that they could protect from the tectonic tremor with the help of this type of construction. So that is the uniqueness of this. So what we have seen in Indian temples, but you can see that the regional temples, how regional temples give you that particular idea of to protect the climatic, to withstand the climatic situation, and the dynamism you can find even in this construction. This is a Docha-Mocha temple. The two-legged female deities are worshipped, goddesses are worshipped. Now I am running late, and so it is again the Gautam Rishi temple. It is another example of the painted roof style, and you can see it is covered. In most cases, what we find that in the Garbhagriha, then it is surrounded by the production hall. So it is a simple form of painted roof temple style of that particular region. Now another, it is one of the beautiful temples of Chamba Valley, because I have already told you that in spite of having that some of the Nagara temples in Chamba, in many other places, districts of there, but the uniqueness remains unparalleled. That particular, these type of painted roof or the multi-tower temples remain unparalleled. So here you can see the Lakshmana Devi temple. Lakshmana Devi, sometimes the Brahmanical deities or goddess are being worshipped in different names. So Lakshmana Devi is here. We find that it is absolutely on the lintel. We find the image of, in lintel, that means not the lintel, but in the left dorzam, we find the image of the Mahishasuramardinie, and then exactly the same image we find even in this particular Garbhagriha, because it is the Lakshmana Devi is known as Vajrakali. It is another feature, another form of the Durga. So here we can find the Durga is killing the buffalo. So it is also very important temple in that particular region, having a beautiful integrated carvings, beautiful carvings, though most of the carvings are now destroyed, and but you can see that the sloping roof, how beautifully they created that particular sloping roof. So this is the some of the, I have shown you some of the most important and best examples of the vernacular temples of this region. And here we can see that it is from these temples we can get an idea of their religious beliefs, customs, and their practices, ritual practices, and their indigenous form of knowledge, indigenous form of or the traditional knowledge of construction techniques, and the use of the materials, and they knew the materials, building materials which is suitable for their region, and that is they applied this particular materials to their construction because they wanted to protect their religious structure also. So this is the uniqueness of the structure of Himachal Pradesh and uniqueness of the vernacular temples of Himachal Pradesh. So it is no doubt that we can see the dynamism in that particular temple structure. So if we compare with the Nagara temple style, that even the structure, religious structure, this type of the pentaroof structure, the vernacular temples remain unparalleled. So with this short introduction, with this short presentation, just I would like to thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing, and definitely the organizer for inviting me here to present my slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Professor.
It's wonderful.
There are a few questions here.
Yeah.
So I think we can take up the questions first and then we proceed further. There is a question from Ajit Padmanabha, that are the temples at Kinnor also similar in architecture and in terms of local knowledge?
Yeah, definitely. Some of this are so slight regional or local variations are there, because as you know, that is actually as a research project from the Ministry of Culture, ICSSR. I'm doing my project there, and I have visited some of these districts here, and I have studied, but not the all. But it is the Kinnauр, Chamba, then Manali, Kulu districts, and Narkonda, and so many districts I have visited. And whatever I have seen, that in most cases, these two types are very important, and they applied this particular technique.
There is another question by Ajit, that is the artisan community alive and transmitting knowledge to younger generation?
No, this is the whatever I felt there. It is not the artisan class is there. No specific artisan class is there. So they don't require this, because the knowledge, whatever they have, it is the indigenous form of knowledge. And then from the grandfather, from the father, from the son, it is just moving from that one generation to other generations. So the common people, the villagers, can form it, because they don't require the specified particular specific craftsmanship. So it is the knowledge, they have the construction knowledge, that they learned it from their forefathers. So it is continuous, that particular.
There is one hand raised by Ms. Dhan Lakshmi. Do you have a question, please?
Professor Sharda, do you have any question?
Yeah.
So thank you. Sorry, someone else speaking? No.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Basu. A very fascinating talk. And a couple of course, aspects that came. I was just wondering about, the matter that you mentioned about the livestock being in the base and so on. That you also find in the context of some of the Tibetan vernacular architecture. So I just wonder whether there are some broader connections as well that could be explored. And also the last slide that you showed of the Devi temple, is the wooden lintel, the later part, has it been built around it, or is that the only part of the surviving structure?
Lintel is the renovated. Actually, it is not the original one, because most of the part of the lintel has been destroyed. So it is not most of this case. But there are some integrated designs, so the floral and even the motifs are there. The figurines are there in the Lakshmana Devi temples. And the livestock is probably, because as you know, it is a very cold region. So they keep this in that particular region, and they use that upper part for their livelihood, for their living purpose. So this is also very interesting, that they keep the livestock in such a way that even that they can feel that the warm in that particular way. So it is also very interesting to see that.
Well, that's
there is another question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sharda Srinivasanji, Shid Padma Shri awardee, and we are thankful for her to join us. There is another question from Pratima Ravi Prakash. She says, thank you, Professor Durga, for enlightening why the walls are not plastered and painted. I always used to wonder.
Yeah, actually
about,
for this,
plastering and painting.
Yeah, there is no plastering or no covering of that particular outer wall, especially because it is just to penetrate the heat, the sunlight, so that sunlight can penetrate through the wall. Because as you know, that wall is built in different way. Because in between the two waterlogs, you find that infill traps the air, and it gives us the insulation. That means it will keep the wall warm. So they have that knowledge that if they plaster, then the air cannot penetrate through these walls. So that is why in most cases they open that particular wall. They do not want to paint the outer wall. This is also another technique. They knew how to keep the warm, how to keep the sunlight or the heat through this wall to penetrate to the room. So it is also very interesting, amazing to see this technique.
Yeah, thank you. There is a comment from Mr. Krishnamurti appreciating the local techniques. He says, very interesting talk, madam. It shows the usage of indigenous technique in the construction of structure so as to withstand the vagaries of nature. Important to be given to indigenous technique rather than blindly following modern engineering in construction houses or temples. Hope this knowledge will be preserved for future generations. Very enlightening. So I think we should work on it, on the indigenous techniques of various parts of India, in other parts also, because it is very important to use the locally available material and use the skills that they develop themselves, and also to meet the extremes climate of area. It can be hot or it can be cold. So there are many comments by others. They are all highly appreciating, and they are thankful to Professor Durga and to Bharati Vidya Bhavan and Destination Heritage for organizing this important talk. May I request Shri Ashok Pradhan ji, Director Bharati Vidya Bhavan, who is always an inspiration for organizing, for conducting all these things, and he's director Bharati Vidya Bhavan Delhi Kendra, and he is the person who has established Center of Indology and taking forward all these projects. So Shri Ashok Pradhan ji, can you please say a few words? Please unmute yourself.
Can you listen to me now?
जी,
am I
जी सुन सकते हैं जी ऑडिबल.
अच्छा, भारतीय विद्या भवन की ओर से और सेंट्रल इंडोलॉजी की तरफ से मैं डॉक्टर दुर्गा बसु और लगभग 50 व्यक्तियों ने, स्कॉलर्स ने, जिन्होंने आज ये ज्वाइन किया है, उनके प्रति मैं आभार प्रकट करता हूँ। भारतीय विद्या भवन के विषय में शशि बालाजी ने पहले ही बता दिया कि किस प्रकार का ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है और किस प्रकार से भारतीय संस्कृति और संस्कृत भाषा को आगे बढ़ा रहा है। भारतीय संस्कृति में टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर और टेम्पल्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट। इस एस्पेक्ट को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए ये जो टेम्पल्स के ऊपर लेक्चर्स या प्रेजेंटेशन का वो किया गया है, उन सब के लिए मैं शशि बालाजी का तीसरे जो लेक्चर दुर्गा बसु जी का आया है, उन्होंने किस प्रकार से बताया कि हिमाचल प्रदेश में जितने भी टेम्पल्स हैं जिनकी की पिक्चर्स उन्होंने दिखाई, वो किस तरीके से बनाई गई और किस तरह से वो उनकी जो अपने ही स्थानों में जिस प्रकार की आवश्यकताएं कंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए अवेलेबल थी, उनसे बनाया गया और किस प्रकार से कितने सुंदर सुंदर मंदिर बने हुए हैं। ये मेरे लिए बड़े सुख की बात है इस बात को जानना, क्योंकि मैंने बहुत से मंदिरों को हिमाचल प्रदेश में देखा है, जाकर प्रणाम किया है, परंतु इसके विषय में किस प्रकार से कंस्ट्रक्शन होता था, किस प्रकार से उसको होता था, ये सब आप जानकर दुर्गा बसु जी से मैं बहुत उनका आभारी हूँ। और जो आज टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर के बारे में बात की गई, मैं कहूँगा कि और भी टेम्पल्स जितने भी बने हुए हैं भारतवर्ष में, ऊपर उत्तर भारत से लेकर दक्षिण भारत तक, पूर्व भारत से लेकर पश्चिमी भारत तक, उन सब के विषयों में हम आगे बात आशा करते हैं कि मंदिर आएंगे। और इसका सबसे बड़ी बात समझने की ये है कि बहुत से लोगों को बहुत सी बातों का ज्ञान नहीं होता, तो इस टेम्पल के विषयों में जो बातें कही जा रही हैं, उससे मैं समझता हूँ देश के विभिन्न भागों में जितने भी लोग इसको ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, उनको भी इसके विषय में बहुत सी बातें पता लगती हैं। अंत में एक बात और ही कहना चाहूँगा कि टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर, बेटे मत करो, टेम्पल का आर्किटेक्चर बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है कि अगर टेम्पल बनेंगे ही नहीं तो आगे उसमें क्या होगा। परंतु किस प्रकार से टेम्पल्स में भक्ति भावना, भक्ति का को आगे बढ़ा है और किस किस प्रकार से ये चीज़ें हो रही है, पिछले 2 लेक्चर्स में सामने आई। और मैं समझता हूँ कि आगे भी दोनों ही बातों को लेकर हम आगे बढ़ेंगे। परंतु मैं कहता हूँ कि आज का बहुत ही विशेष प्रेजेंटेशन था डॉक्टर दुर्गा बसु जी का, मैं उनका आभारी हूँ और आशा करता हूँ इसी प्रकार से हम और भारत में विभिन्न टेम्पल्स के बारे में, उनकी हिस्ट्री के बारे में, उनके आर्किटेक्चर के बारे में, उनके उद्देश्यों के बारे में जानते रहेंगे। और मेरा शशि बालाजी से ये निवेदन है कि जितने भी लेक्चर हो रहे हैं उनको भारतीय विद्या भवन की ओर से जो लोग लेक्चर दे रहे हैं उनकी एक्सेप्टेंस लेकर उनका प्रकाशन करना चाहिए, जिससे कि विभिन्न टेम्पल्स का भारतवर्ष के उनके बनने का, उनका उद्देश्यों का, उस सबका एक ही जगह सबको मिल जाएगा। ये मेरा विचार है और मैं आप सबसे उम्मीद करता हूँ आप लोग इस बात से भी एग्री करेंगे, क्योंकि लेक्चर हो गया, हम लोगों ने 50 लोगों ने 60 लोगों ने सुन लिया, परंतु अगर उनका सबका प्रकाशन एक जगह हो जाएगा तो ये बहुत ही अच्छी बात रहेगी कि आगे की जो जनरेशंस हैं, आज के जो यंग स्टूडेंट्स हैं और लोग हैं, वो सब भी इस विषय में जान सकेंगे। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं डॉक्टर दुर्गा बसु जी को और जिन लोगों ने आज ज्वाइन किया उन सबका और शिशिबाला जी के प्रति अपना आभार प्रकट करता हूँ। और अब मैं जो अगले लेक्चर होगा उसके प्रति मैं प्रतीक्षा करूँगा। धन्यवाद।
जी नमस्कार। नमस्कार। थैंक यू वेरी मच Ashok Pradhan ji. We will take your advice forward. I'm thankful to Miss Akiko Sugita, the Consul General at the Japanese Consulate in Bangalore. She has also joined us. And when Dr. Durga Basu was talking, I was thinking of the Japanese temple architecture. Being an expert of Japanese history of art, I could find many similarities with Japanese temples. So we don't have time right now to talk all about it, but it was very interesting to have a comparative study with other parts of the world and also India, like the temples, wooden temple construction in Kerala or Assam, or whether it is in Himachal Pradesh, because it is because of the, as you said, climates, how to face, how to protect the temple from the vagaries of the climate. So I'm thankful to you. And for example, you were talking about the worshipping village gods and local deities. So the similar idea is there in Japan also. We can find this, and architecture also, multi-layered roofs, sloping roofs, all these things, and inserting the beams and pillars, and all these techniques are to be examined with the Japanese architectural skills. So I'm thankful to Mr. Ajit Padmanabha, and most important, my gratefulness is Dr. Geeta Yubadikalaya, the founder trustee of Destination Heritage, because she has been working hard to organize these this series of talks on temples. I am thankful to so many scholars, explorers who have joined us, like Ms. Sunita Dwivedi ji, Dr. From Delhi, Dr. Ludmila Klasenova from Norway, Professor Sharda Srinivasan, Padma Shri, Professor Urvi Agarwal from New Delhi. So I can see people from Tamil Nadu to Kashmir, from Assam to many parts of India, many states. So finally, my gratefulness, my thankfulness is to Professor Durga, and I request you to please send a script of your talk so that it can be published. It can be included in the book that we are planning to bring out at the end of the series. So I'm thankful to you for bringing to us the knowledge about different kinds of temples, because there are two major streams. The kings, the emperors, they built temple in their way that look grandeur, they are huge, they are grand in scale. But where you talked about the faith of the people, the devotion of the people, the common man, how he thinks, what kind of faith does he has, and what kind of skills that they have, and the local techniques. Local techniques are very important for the whole of the world. So they are developed by local people, and they still have preserved it. So and also the use of locally available material is also important. So there are different styles that are popular all over India and different parts of India. They are seen, like in the Bajnath temple, and you can see from Parvanu to going up to Rampur Bushehr, because Himachali, I have been traveling to all these places and have some experience, like the Jaku temple dedicated to Hanumanji, and all these things. There are historicity also behind them. So preservation of techniques and skills is very important. We should work on it. And least cost of maintenance is also very important.
That is also important.
Yeah, because otherwise they can't maintain them. It's like the technique of insulation, absorption of sunlight. They don't use any synthetic material, because synthetic material does not absorb the divine energy. So that is also an important part. So sloping roof, sometimes you will feel that from the outside it's a double story or 3-story or 5-story temple, but from inside it is single story. That is very important in Japan also, Japanese temple architecture. So you showed us different temples from different parts of Himachal Pradesh, from Tirupura Sundari to Hidimba, and how the dedication to sages in the temples in the name of sages. These our sages, the 7 important sages, very famous, are even worshipped in Japan also. So we need further comparative studies in collaboration with Japanese scholars, and also we ourselves can also do a few things. So with these words, I thank you once again, all of you, Shri Shokradhanji, and all those who have joined us, and Professor Geeta Basu and Dr. Geeta Badikalaya. We look forward for more and more such enlightening talks on our great heritage, grand heritage. It is our duty to preserve and promote and take it forward for the next generation, because the next generation, the way it is being brought up, the way it is being educated, they are lacking all this knowledge. It is our duty to preserve and take it forward, to transmit it to the coming generation for future. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.